Petal is a Helper by Miss Chelsea. Once upon a summer there was a very sick flower petal named Petal. Days before she had fallen off her flower while trying to face the sun, and she fell straight into a puddle where she soon caught a really bad case of brown petal syndrome. Her fever spiked and the very tip of her head started to turn brown. She knew she was sick, but she was so sad that she couldn't dance and play like the others. They didn't fall off the flower like Petal did. They pulled off on purpose, because being on the flower all summer long was so boring. She didn't even mean to fall off the flower, and yet she was the one that got so sick. Time went by as Petal watched the others frolic in the wind, dancing and singing their happy little hearts away. Petal sat in her stinky puddle with her browning petal skin and sulked at the sight of the others enjoying themselves. They also noticed Petal's luck and began to judge her for falling into the puddle. She started to cry as they laughed at her and teased her. Her stinky, sick pollen started to puff into the sky, and she was starting to stink pretty bad. The other petals, still dancing in the wind, thought it was pretty funny to make fun of Petal's brown tip, among her other stinky symptoms. How could Petal be so clumsy? They began to think that it must have been all Petal's fault she got sick with brown petal syndrome. We would never fall into a puddle like you, Petal. We are so much smarter and skilled than you. Hearing the others getting into mischief, the wise ones still in the flower started to take notice that Petal and the others were missing. Oh no, those silly ones! Don't they know they aren't healthy out there? Our flower keeps us happy and healthy. Our flower is where we have each other, and our flower brings us water and sunlight. They are pretty silly, but I'm pretty sure that one down there fell off the flower. We really need to help that poor Petal in the puddle. She must be so scared and sad to be sick all by herself in that puddle. But we can't help her. She has brown petal syndrome. If we go down there and pull away from our flower, we are sure to get it ourselves. Seeing that this was true, the wise ones knew that if they were going to save Petal, they would have to be creative. They started to come up with a plan. Maybe they wouldn't be safe if they pulled off the flower, but they knew how to make lots and lots of pollen, and pollen attracts the bumbliest of species. They started to puff with joy all together as a community. They puffed and puffed as much as they could puff. The pollen got so thick that it started to attract a joyful little bumblebee who happened to be nearby. The bumblebee fumbled and bumbled to and fro all the way over to the flower, hoping to enjoy a nice sleep in the fabulous fluff of delicious and magnificent pollen. As the bumblebee stuck his little bumble self right into the flower, the stem started to bend from the weight of the bee. The flower started to bend down further and further as the bee slumbered his happy little bumble bottom inside the flower and enjoyed the delicious pollen. Eventually the bumblebee's bumbling had pulled the flower all the way down to the puddle where Petal was plopped. As the wise ones hit the puddle, they pulled Petal and held her tight, helping her take a seat back on the flower. The silly dancing petals saw what the wise ones were doing and rolled their annoyed eyes. The bumblebee, loopy on the sweet smell of pollen, eventually got really uncomfortable being upside down and bumbled off to find a sturdier bed. He was so fat and happy he didn't even notice his breeze made the dancing loose petals blow swiftly right into the puddle. All of a sudden, they got really scared. Oh no, what are we gonna do? We're gonna get brown petal syndrome just like Petal. We're not so smart and skilled as we thought. Petal and the others will never help us after how we behaved. The stinky ones began to sulk and mope as they started to turn brown, just as they had feared. As Petal started to get her water and sunshine back, she recovered from her brown petal syndrome, and the other petals were so happy to see her recovery. Seeing that the once dancing and singing petals, who had made fun of her, were now stuck in the puddle and getting browner by the moment, she started to get concerned. Hey guys, I know they made me so sad, making fun of me for my brown petal syndrome, but we should really help them. They need us just like I needed you, said Petal. One of the wise ones sat for a moment. Miss Petal, you're so kind. Those petals, they laughed at you, but still you want to help them? And said, because I'm Petal. I don't hurt and I don't tease. I have a big heart and I believe in kindness. They can laugh and they can tease, but I'm Petal and Petal is a helper. The wise ones looked at Petal and smiled. Yes, you are, Petal. Let's help those silly ones, shall we? Together as a team, the petals puffed out their pollen again, and this time it was much stronger because Petal was healthy again, and she was puffing too. The pollen trailed so far that it hit the senses of a purple butterfly gliding through the air in the calm afternoon sunset. The butterfly fluttered over to the flower and nuzzled her head into the calming pollen. Once again, this bent the flower all the way down, right into the puddle. As the flower bent down to the puddle, Petal and the wise ones hoisted up their silly friends and helped get them seated in their rightful place. Just as the last petal was placed perfectly in their spot, the sweet little butterfly had had her fill and released the flower from her grasp. The butterfly flew away, swinging the flower back up upon release. When all of the petals were in place, the silly dancing petals started to cry and thank the others for what they had done for them. We are really very sorry for the way we acted, Petal. We really have big hearts and we want to be kind too. Thank you so much for helping us. From now on, when any of you are in trouble, we won't be mean and tease you. We will be nice and we will help you just as you have helped us. A team we are and a team we will stay. Because of a bunch of creativity, a little bravery, and a lot of kindness from its very special petals, the flower was able to survive the entire summer, thriving on the water and sunlight of the joyful season. All the petals sang and swayed together in the light breeze, and they were happy. Love and kindness always makes petals happy. The end.